5 Live Formula One.
Hello and welcome to Bahrain and welcome to the F1 paddock, where things are settling down after media day here. There's been lots of chat with the drivers, but the overriding story here in Bahrain has been that surrounding Christian Horner, the team principal of Red Bull Racing. And he is to remain now, we know, as team principal of Red Bull following an investigation into alleged inappropriate behaviour towards a female colleague at Red Bull. So I'm joined by the team, the 5 Live team, Harry Benjamin, our lead commentator, Alice Powell, racing driver and broadcaster, and the BBC's chief F1 writer, Andrew Benson. Harry, it's been an interesting day. I think we were all here to talk about the drivers, to find out how they were feeling heading into the Bahrain Grand Prix, the first round of the season. But really, everybody's been waiting to find out the fate of Christian Horner, the team principal of Red Bull, since 2005. What do we know now?
Yeah, well, it's all everyone's been talking about. We first heard about this investigation launched by Red Bull, the parent company, which should be said on the 5th of February. We know very few details about the specifics of this investigation or the allegations. Red Bull released a statement this evening saying the independent investigation into the allegations made against Mr. Horner is complete, and Red Bull can confirm that the grievance has been dismissed. The complaint has a right of appeal. It then goes on to say we will not be commenting further out of respect for all concerned. Red Bull will continue striving to meet the highest workplace standards.
So that's all that the team have communicated at this stage. It's the evening here on the Wednesday. It's all a little different this weekend as we're racing on Sunday. Andrew Benson, you've been sitting at your computer all afternoon waiting for an update, I'm sure, to find out where we go from here. Where do we begin with this, really? Because it's been a huge talking point for Formula One.
Well, I think the place to begin is to point out that there's a female colleague of Christian Horner's who feels wronged by what he's done to her. The Red Bull statement makes it clear that she has a right of appeal with them. Of course, she has a right of appeal in a legal situation as well. We don't know how she's going to react to that. And, you know, I think everyone in Formula One has heard what these allegations are. We obviously can't repeat them on air today. But Lewis Hamilton was talking about this in the press conference earlier, and he made some important points. He said that it was a really important moment to make sure we stand true to our values. We always have to do more to try to make the sport and the environment people work in feel safe and inclusive, and any allegations have to be taken very seriously. It will be really interesting to see how it's dealt with and the effect it may well have on the sport. And I think that's the big question now. What happens next? What effect will it have on Formula One? What steps are going to be taken? What other information might emerge in the future?
Yeah, it's been a really tricky day for Formula One and for the drivers who were actually asked a lot about it in the press conference. And of course, they found it difficult. Even Max Verstappen, the driver at Red Bull Racing, found it difficult to comment on the situation. We're standing in the Bahrain paddock, the Bahrain International Circuit paddock. And as I'm looking at the Red Bull garage behind us, the world's media are there trying to tell the story that's been going on and unfolding this afternoon and this evening. I'm watching some of the Spanish, the South American media as well. This is a story that affects everybody, Alice. And as a female racing driver, obviously it affects perhaps you and your colleagues a little bit more. To feel inclusive and safe, as Andrew said, is so important. How are some of you and your colleagues feeling today?
I mean, you just have to trust that Red Bull have done it all properly. You know, it's been independent, it's been done all correctly, and we have to trust that they have come to the correct decision. You know, that's, as Harry said in from the statement, they are not releasing all the details. It's private investigation. So from my point of view, I just hope that this is the correct and right decision, and that if it isn't, and the lady in question appeals, then again, I hope that it's all dealt with correctly, because, you know, it doesn't necessarily mean the F1 paddock. It can be any paddock that you're racing in motorsport, whether it sort of be, you know, in touring cars, whether it be some of the junior categories, and especially with F1 Academy now joining F1, and will be at Jeddah next weekend. You know, we want the paddock to be safe, and for young drivers, young female drivers to come into the paddock, and mechanics as well, and journalists and etc. to come into the paddock and sort of feel safe. And as I said, I just hope that it has been dealt with correctly, and that he is innocent, because obviously if he isn't and he's got away with it, then that's not going to be good, is it?
And OK, Red Bull have issued a statement. that surely is not the last of this story, Harry Benjamin. I mean, when Formula One starts in earnest tomorrow with FP1, the session starting, surely the cameras are going to be trained on Christian Horner on the pit wall or in the garage, how he's interacting with team members. Of course, the cameramen are going to be searching for a shot of him talking to a female colleague, of course, and you as a commentator, you're going to be talking about that. So this is not the end of the story.
No, not at all. I think this will drag on still for a bit longer. And to echo what Alice said, it begs questions of, and it shines a spotlight, not just on this kind of behaviour in motorsport, but in sport in general as well. Let's not forget, this is the pinnacle of motorsport, but it has ramifications on sport worldwide about what the goings on and what the right protocols are and if they are abided by. We were expecting to see Christian Horner here this evening. I haven't seen him, but I imagine he hasn't shown up just yet because there'll be photos all over social media. So he is still expected to be here this weekend. And that's what set things off, really. We all knew he was coming. So that kind of felt like, well, okay, maybe we know what the outcome of this investigation will be. But when he turns up tomorrow and it's practice day, all cameras will be on him and he'll have to face some tricky questions.
So a couple of things that are interesting have happened in the last few days. One is that today Max Verstappen was asked twice in the news conference whether he had full confidence in Christian Horner, and he ducked the question. He ducked it by saying he had full, trust in the process that Red Bull were going through, but he didn't answer the question, and that really, pricked a few ears up in the media centre. The second thing is that Ford, the US car giant, they're Red Bull's engine partner from 2026. Now, their CEO wrote a letter to Red Bull in the last few days, which was leaked to a news agency called the Associated Press, in which he expressed his frustrations at both the length of time it was dragging on and Red Bull's lack of transparency. Now, there's been absolutely no transparency in that statement, as Alex was referring to. Have Ford got that transparency? If they haven't, what do they do? Because if they decide that they can't be seen to be associated with a situation like this, then that could have huge ramifications, not just for Red Bull, because they'd be potentially losing an engine partner and millions of dollars paying for their engine program, but also the sport. Imagine the reputational risk if a company like Ford pulled out of Formula One because of something like this.
But also the reputation of Red Bull as well. Let's say the lady appeals and then she wins, or we have details come out of further details of what actually happened. I just think that would be disgusting, and Red Bull would, everyone's talking about it, but everyone would be talking down about Red Bull because we need to protect people in the paddock, whether it be males, whether it be females. We all need to be protected. We say it's a motorsport family. If it's a motorsport family, people shouldn't be protected in that sense if they've done wrong. So, like I said, I really hope that this is the correct decision and he hasn't done anything wrong. But if it does happen that it's come to light, then I think that's disgusting from Red Bull, if it does.
It's also important to say, of course, that Christian Horner has always denied these allegations, and I'm sure that when he speaks to the media tomorrow, when I assume it will be, he'll do so again. And as we know, it was an independent lawyer, a barrister, that Red Bull engaged. He's done an investigation which I understand has taken 8 weeks. We've only known about it since the 5th of February, but it's been going on since the beginning of the year, I've been told. So it sounds thorough. You do have to ask questions about how independent something is when the lawyer is being paid for by the company that then makes the decision about their own employee. But as Alice says, and as Max Verstappen says, we have to trust the process. Horner's denied the allegations, and we just have to see what happens next.
And they say it was rigorous. I mean, Christian Horner's rumoured to have spent 8 hours talking in court, then an 150-page report as well. But where does this leave Christian Horner? He's got such history with the team. He's got, would you say, good relationships with part of Red Bull, Andrew? Because it's an interesting setup, that company, isn't it? It's not just Red Bull Racing. You have Red Bull Austria. There's the Thai faction as well. He seems to have better relations, perhaps, with that side of the company. But can you see him continuing for the long term, even if he's managed to stick it out this long?
So I can't comment on the rumours about splits within Red Bull. There are rumours about that. There have been reports about the Thai side and the Austrian side not seeing eye to eye on this particular situation. It should be pointed out that this has gone to the company's board. They've made this decision. 51% owned by the Thai Uvidia family, 49% owned by Red Bull Austria, the sort of descendants of Dietrich Mateschitz, who died in October 2022. We don't know whether it's going to end here or not. It all depends on what steps the various parties involved take. Obviously, Red Bull have decided that it should end here, but it's not in their control. We have to wait and see how the complainant responds, whether any other information comes out. A Dutch newspaper a couple of weeks ago said that it had seen some of the evidence that's been discussed in this case. It didn't publish that evidence. It only described the nature of the evidence, which on the BBC we've not been able to even describe the nature of the evidence. Will that evidence come out? Because if that evidence is clearly outside Red Bull, so they aren't in control of whether that evidence emerges into the public domain. If it does, what happens then?
I was talking to a few friends in the paddock, and they said the same thing, Andrew. They said, well, then surely let's see the evidence then. Let's make our own minds up. If Red Bull said, this is an internal private investigation, well, surely then the rest of us have the right, if it's fine and he's cleared and he didn't actually do it, then surely you can...
full transparency.
Have full transparency, and we can say, okay, no, you're right, and everything's okay. So people are going to be pushing for that, definitely.
I think there's two separate levels of this, though, aren't there, Alice? There's the public issue, and you can see Red Bull's point when they say these are private allegations on a sensitive matter, but then there's the matter of all the partners of Red Bull and the stakeholders involved in this situation. And when I say that, I mean the people involved. And how they feel about it. And they're within their rights, not just Ford, all the other sponsors on the Red Bull car, they're all major international corporations. They're going to want some answers from this that are more than that statement that we've been given this evening in Bahrain. So we just have to wait and see what develops.
And that's when you're talking about the fraternity of sponsors surrounding Red Bull Racing. Of course, you can go up the tree as well in terms of Formula One. How have Formula One reacted to this, and what's the temperature within their business and organisation?
Well, on one level, they seem to have got what they wanted because they asked for it to be resolved before the season started, and it's been resolved just about, at the 11th, absolutely literally the 11th hour almost before the season starts. They're in a difficult position, Formula One, because they don't have any power to do anything about this. So they're almost helpless in a situation where, as you say, there's a potential reputational issue for some of their corporate sponsors. The FIA do have the power, the governing body that is, to do something about it. The International Sporting Code contains Article 12.2, which is a kind of catch-all clause to do with sort of general behaviour that brings the sport into disrepute and everything. So the FIA would be within their rights to ask for this evidence as well, so that they could be satisfied that it's been dealt with properly. What we don't know yet is whether they're going to do that. And
the FIA were a little bit busy with a council meeting today, weren't they? So have they had half an eye on what's been going on here, do you think, as well?
You would hope so.
Yes, we live in hope there. If we take a step back and look at Formula One as a whole, this is not the sort of PR that the sport wants, Harry. Young people, young women, young men wanting to come and work in this sport. This hasn't been a great advert for the sport. And if Alice is, we've spoken about if it's been done right and rigorously, then that's great. We maybe be able to draw a line under it. But this will always sort of call into question how the sport operates, these sort of conversations.
Absolutely. And the last couple of years, Formula One and the teams within it and the drivers have all been ramping up their efforts to become more inclusive and diversify, especially with women in motorsport and people from less fortunate backgrounds getting more opportunities. I wonder what, particularly focusing on Red Bull, how sort of they operate now for the rest of the weekend. Does this become a massive distraction for them, even though it's sort of, if you're working in the team, Alice, maybe you'll know the answer to this actually, if you're working in the team, you're an engineer or a technician, are you actually a little bit removed from all of this? Or because this is all that anyone is talking about, is this going to have an effect on the day-to-day running for the rest of this weekend? Because yes, as Andrew said, it's been resolved, but there's still a cloud hanging over this.
I think the only distraction really might be a few extra cameras being poked into the garage, some journalists hanging around like us outside the back of the garage. But the drivers, they're not going to be worrying about this at all. The mechanics on the car, they're not even going to be thinking about this at all. They've all got their jobs to do. It's still their workplace. Everyone has trouble sometimes at the workplace and things are resolved. So yeah, they won't be thinking about this at all. They will 100% have a focus on the job this weekend.
And maybe we're getting ahead of ourselves, but if Red Bull win this weekend and they're on the podium, I imagine their marketing and communications department are already thinking about who they send up on the podium. Would it be a woman by any chance? Or would it be the team principal?
Maybe it would be Christian, but I can't imagine it's going to be.
Someone else. Interesting questions and hopefully a few answers over the next few days. Guys, thank you so much for reviewing what we've sort of seen, heard, read over the last 24 hours, 48 hours and a few weeks. It's been an interesting one for Formula One, and it will be interesting to see how the sport, and especially the team Red Bull Racing, moves on from here. Tomorrow we'll take a deep dive and a closer look at what's going on in the F1 paddock as we head into the longest ever Formula One season, 24 races, and it all starts here in Bahrain. This has been an IMG production for BBC Radio 5 Live.